Welcome Ritual Scale Modeling. This is part 12 of AMT Star Trek USS Enterprise NCC 1701E. Scale is 1 to 1400. In this part, I'm going to be placing on the decals and putting the finishing touches to the model. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. To begin with, I've had a bit of a disaster. I was filling up some little light blades and the tube of plastic putty exploded, and unfortunately exploded all over my water cells. Now I've managed to get the majority of it off before it's set. I'm just using what's gone onto the mat to fill little holes, but there's I'm going to have to repaint this, and the paint's going to look a little bit thick now in places. But that's the nature of things. I don't get angry with it. It's just one of these things that I have to sort out. So it's time to move on. I've done all that. I didn't record it because I was frantically trying to sort things out before the putty set. So I didn't get any of that on camera, but trust me, it was a bloody mess. You can see what the map was like, and that was after I scraped off most of the stuff from the water cells. Anyway, now it's time to put on the decals, and as you can see, I've fast forwarded in this process. I'm placing on the Aztec pattern first. Now these decals go on same as any other decal. I put a little bit of decal formula on, which is the micro set, and then I place on the decal into warm water before placing it onto the surface, and then I'll go back over it with a little bit of more micro set just to bed them in. Now it's important to use the decals solution on homemade decals because the film is going to be slightly thicker than a normal decal, so it's important that you can get the decal bedded in as good as possible. And also, I should note as well, when you're cutting these decals ready to go on, you want to cut them as close to the pattern as possible, so you haven't got any runoff on the paper, because the paper, as I said, can be a little bit thick. Also, don't cut into the pattern because you'll lose your detail. You'll be surprised how many people do that. I've done it myself on occasions. But the decals go on quite well. It takes a little bit of getting used to because they don't perform exactly like a manufacturer's decal, but it's the price that you pay for printing your own instead of paying 50 to 100 odd pounds for a manufacturer to come around and do custom decals for you. And once these decals are on and dry, I'll be using Pledge Clear Polish to varnish them before I put on the next set of decals. Like anything, when you're painting or building a model, always put a coat of varnish on once you're finished with a particular stage. That just helps protect the stage that you've already worked on. And if you do have to remove it, you can remove things easily without ruining your work that you've done beforehand. So the Aztec pattern was left overnight and dried. A varnish was applied, and that was left for a couple of hours. And now it's time to put on the main decals from the kit itself. Just like any other decals, these go on quite well. Sometimes AMT decals can break easily. I had a couple break. It depends how old the decal is. That's why it's always a good idea to scan in your decals into your computer before you start work on them, just in case you have to print them out yourself if there's any breakages or degradation of the actual quality of the decal. But these ones were quite good. And once they're on, what I shall do is I'll leave them to dry, and then I'll coat them with varnish, leave them to dry further before flipping it over and doing the top section of the decals. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that I haven't painted in the phaser banks for the underside or the bottom side of the saucer section. There's a reason for that, and the reason is I forgot to do it. Simple as that. And I didn't realise it until I started putting on the decals. So I've got no option now but to carry on with the decals wait till everything's dry and I'll paint them in. Hopefully I'll get away with it, only time will tell. So the decals are dried and I'm using Tamiya's XF56 metallic grey to paint in the phaser banks. It's quite an easy paint really, because it's quite a high ridge, and if you've got a small enough paintbrush, it's easy enough just to run your paintbrush over and get them painted in. And now the underside decals are dry, I'm flipping it over and I'm going for the top side now. So again, fast forwarding this process. The reason why I fast forward them is because there's so many decals to get in. It's pointless showing every single one. And once you put one decal on, to be honest with you, you put on all the decals. If you've never done it before, it's nice to see the process, but most models at this stage I'll put on countless decals anyway. It is worth noting here though that some of the larger decals go over the windows, and there's spaces within the decal to allow this. So it's important that you match everything up to your actual windows, or you may end up blocking the light to a certain degree otherwise. So as before, I'm using Pledge Clear Polish. The decals are all on just to seal everything in. This will take a good 2 hours to dry. Touch dry is about 20 to 30 minutes, I should point out. But you want it to cure properly before the next stage. So around about 2 hours. And now for the last coat of varnish to go on. And this varnish will be Winsor & Newton matte varnish. So everything is getting a matte finish. This is a personal choice. Some people like to put a satin finish on it. Some people like to do a high gloss. I prefer a matte finish on these. It's just my personal choice. There's no rhyme or reason for it really. Now this matte varnish takes a lot longer to dry than the Pledge Clear. This will take roughly 5 to 6 hours to varnish, to dry. Maybe about 4 hours to touch dry, but I wouldn't even risk it then. It's better to leave it overnight if you're not too sure. So it's the next day, and we're doing this very early in the morning, so sorry about the light quality here. So it's time to attach it to the stand. So first of all, I'm using the replacement metal rod. This one is a hollow center, and I'm just placing the wires down it before connecting it to the actual model itself. Now I'm going to be putting a little bit of tape on the bottom of this just to give it more grip. The base bit has already saved a little bit of tape, and that's just a bit of masking tape. I prefer to do this instead of placing in a super glue or a hot glue to put this in position. That way, if I need to move it and take it off the stand, it's not in a solid state. I can easily remove it. So once I've got the rod in place, it's a simple case of fitting it to the base and pulling the wire through the holes that I made in the previous video. Can't really see here because it's quite close up to the camera now. I can't zoom out any more than I actually am. So if I lay it down the sides like that, you may be able to see the wire coming through. So I'm just going to pass that through there. But first of all, I'm going to just put a heat shrink sheath on it just to protect the wires. You don't really have to do this if you don't want to, but it's better to keep them together. So like before, when with everything else, I'm just putting the sheath on, and I'll shrink it down using my solder iron once it's in place. And then everything should be fairly stable with the sheath on. And this is build in part 12. Indeed, this is the end of the build, so the next video will be the final review. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds. If you subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit the notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date not only with this build, but all my future builds as well, of course. Hit the like button, don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.